Hi, everyone. Welcome to Stories of Resilience, an Okapica podcast. My name is Tavis Choi. I'm one of the program coordinators at Okapica Behavioral Health Services. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And today we're honored to have a special guest, Rebecca Park. She is the program manager for Wellnessecity, which is one of the mental health programs here at Okapica. Thank you, Rebecca, for making the time to be with us here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear a little bit about your story, but before we get into that, do you mind sharing maybe briefly about kind of your role as a program manager as well as kind of the work that Wellnessecity is doing?
Sure. So, I've been here in the Wellnessecity program for almost 6 years, and our theme, Wellnessecity, is wellness is a necessity.
Mhm.
So that's what we kind of go by, and what we do is we bring a lot of awareness to mental health, suicide prevention and awareness. And we do a lot of workshops. We have a great team that does workshops and events. So we also do peer support. So if anyone needs just someone to talk to and provide or receive emotional support, that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it is free too. So
That's always like the kind of like the bonus, like, hey, everything that we do is offered for free. So I think that kind of opens up the door for a lot of people to be a little bit more open
yeah,
to receive services or even to kind of explore that option.
yeah, it's an easy segue, hopefully, for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today we have a special background. It's a little bit different from our other episodes because Rebecca's here. We have Welly here to kind of represent and help with the empty space a little bit. So thank you for allowing us to use this today.
Of course.
Something different, something new. But I know that when we had our initial kind of meeting conversation, we were talking about your story a little bit, and there was a theme or a topic that came up, and I thought would be really cool to maybe address and talk about because I think it's a theme that a lot of people, if not everyone, experiences in one shape or form and at one moment in their life. And it was the theme of rejection. And I think it's such a relevant topic. And so I want to thank you for even being willing and being open to share about your experiences with rejection and how you navigated through that and what helped you to kind of go through those seasons and difficulties. So thank you for being here and willing to share your story with us. Again, like I said in the beginning, I'm so excited to be conversing with you and sharing your story with the community outside. And before we jump into that, we kind of laughed a little bit because you shared a little bit about who you were as a kid.
Uh-huh.
And I thought it'd be really fun to kind of hear, like, who is Rebecca Park? We won't focus on this too much, but just a little bit. Who is Rebecca Park as a little kid? I think it would just be fun, interesting just to hear.
Yeah, I think when I reflect on my childhood, it's more weird stories that my family has shared. Like, for example, I mean, let me actually backtrack. So, I am the first child for my parents, and then I'm also the first grandchild of 10 grandchildren on my dad's side. So there's a whole bunch of us, but because I was the first for everyone, I think there was a lot of attention on me. And I grew up in a very loving family as well, but there was also a lot of expectations. But anyways, I was asking my family, hey, what are some stories that you remember of me in my childhood? And one of the stories my mom told me was, well, when you were little, you really wanted to go on the swings at the kindergarten. And someone was already on the swings, and so you bit them. And then you got in trouble. I was like, oh, shoot. So I also remember like biting my uncle a lot. Like he loved me very much, and he loves me still, but just like always, like I don't know what it was. Like I don't know. And just like typical things, I think that growing up, I think in an Asian household, being the first for everything. Yeah, I think there was a lot of pressure, to be honest, to do well. I grew up in a Christian household, so my grandfather was a pastor. But also because I was the first grandchild, like one of the memories I have is where I had to move a lot of furniture around. I don't know if it's like an Asian thing where like older generations, they constantly want to move the furniture around. Oh, let's move this couch over there. Okay, let's move it over here. So, you know, a lot of having to do heavy lifting and stuff. So I think those are kind of the memories, not that that's definitive of who I am,
Right.
but I think it built into like being the reliable one, being the first, and then having to do well. So I think that kind of tied into like later years for me. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. We know Rebecca now as a biter.
Yeah.
Hopefully that has ended in your adult life now.
I would hope so.
just don't get on Rebecca's bad side because she might bite you.
Oh yeah. Be careful.
Well, thanks for sharing. Today a little bit is about rejection. I think during our initial meeting, you kind of shared some of your early experiences with rejection was during your youth, and also maybe some of your young adult years, so going into college. Do you mind sharing with us about some of those experiences that you've had?
Sure. So I think as I reflect on my school years, many years ago.
we won't go to the age or the year that we graduated,
please,
but yes.
Yes, please save me. But way back then, in my younger years, I was a very introverted student, focused on academics, kind of typical Asian student growing up in an predominantly Asian neighborhood. So there were a lot of students just focused on their academics. So I think that was kind of the typical route that I followed. And, you know, many students back then and even now were aiming to go into a 4-year university, like the typical UCLA, UC Berkeley. So I kind of like trudged along. Like I was fortunate to have friends who were studious. So kind of being in that setting, I also followed suit, but I wasn't the best because I actually had I think a 3.8 GPA.
Wow.
I did try to go into honors classes and stuff. So you can see like right now I feel the students who are like 4.0 and beyond, I'm like, dang, I guys do that. But yeah, back then that was like you know, 3.86 kind of would get you into one of the UCs at the time. So as you can tell, very long time ago.
You're aging yourself right now, Rebecca.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I gotta keep it quiet. Okay. But basically, you know, I aimed to go to the schools that my friends, you know, were aiming to go to. So, you know, I was trying my best, and they got into UCLA. So 2 of my closest friends, they got into UCLA. And for me, I was rejected from UCLA, rejected from, I think, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara. And I got an acceptance letter from UCR. So I just thought, oh, I guess I won't be able to join my friends. You know, I already got rejected from UCLA, so that's kind of a given. I wouldn't be able to go with them. And so I got an acceptance letter from UCI, and I thought, okay, that's where I'll go. But the reality was it felt like rejection from UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, and I'm, you know, kind of wanting to go with my friends. Right. And so when I got that letter, it was very disappointing to not be able to be with my friends, you know, and then continue going to the same school and, you know, being together with them. And so when I went to UCI, I became even more reserved. And that actually was unfortunate because it impacted my grades. I went into UCI wanting to go into biology, but I just could not pass the chemistry. I felt like a dum-dum not being able to pass that. And I failed chemistry, and then I tried to take chemistry again, like, oh, maybe I could do better. I failed chemistry again, and unfortunately, because that kept dropping my GPA, I was also not a really good student at UCI, to be honest. I
Mm.
ditched a lot. Like,
Mm.
I did not go to my classes that
Mm.
first year. And so, unfortunately, I got kicked out of UCI for a quarter. I was panicked. I
Mm.
was scared. I didn't know, like, how am I supposed to move forward, because this has never happened. I don't know anyone else who has really gone through this experience. And for some time too, I was lying to my parents.
Mm.
That really sucked, to have to say like, oh yeah, I'm doing okay, and I'm going to classes, and I'm studying, I'm going to go to the library, and in
Right.
reality it's like, I don't have anything, I don't know
Right.
what I'm doing. And I was kicked out for a quarter.
Mm.
I was able to re-enroll. I don't remember how, but I was able to re-enroll and continue under a different major.
Okay.
And so I went into philosophy.
Mm.
And I went into philosophy because I had a lot of credit and units there. Plus, it was something I was interested in terms of like thinking about different concepts, like what is society? Why do you and I work collaboratively when, if for me, I want to slap you or I want to punch you, that's what I want to do. Who are you to tell me what I can and cannot do, right?
Do you feel that way towards me right now?
No.
Kind of felt like that.
That
for
was
a
a-
second.
No. But it got my mind thinking like, why is it that, not to go into a philosophical direction, but why is it that we have to accommodate to others, right? And it's because we want society to function. There's something more beneficial to gain. And, there's going to be different answers for different people.
Right.
But, even thinking about death, like, why are we scared of death? Have we ever experienced it? We only know stories about people, near-death experiences, or just the concept of no longer existing. So those were kind of really interesting to me, and that's why I kind of went into philosophy. And I was able to graduate in 4 years.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
So I was like, yes, I did it.
Right.
It wasn't really in the direction that I wanted, because at the time I thought, oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be someone who helps people. And, my parents kind of put that thought into my brain, because initially I was like, I just want to be an ambulance driver. I'm like, I don't want to deal with the blood and gore. I'll just drive the ambulance.
Right.
And they're like, why don't you aim for something more? So I was like, yeah, I guess. Yeah. So unfortunately, that dream kind of died as I failed the chemistry portion. And then, for quite some time, I didn't know what I wanted to do afterwards. So that kind of like led into my young adult life.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's so much I feel like you've shared in that kind of season of life, in that stage of life, that I feel like, I know we don't have the time, but there's so much things that we can unpack and talk about. But one thought or one question that comes to mind for me as you're sharing is, number one, you're in high school and you're graduating. Two of your best friends go to UCLA, but you're not able to join them, UCLA. Yeah. Your first year at UCI, you kind of mentioned, I was ditching a lot, and then at one point when you started taking classes, especially more like chemistry, you took a couple of times to a point, maybe you got kicked out for 1 quarter. I'm curious of kind of more of, you're in the mental health field now. We'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
But what were some challenges in terms of mental health that maybe you were experiencing at that time? When you look back, and also kind of what's helped you to really go through that, what's helped you to stay resilient into continuing forward?
Yeah. First of all, great summary. You captured that really well. And then secondly, good question too, tying back to mental health. I think at that time, to be honest, it was probably some form of depression, or maybe like an episode of depression. It wasn't like to the point where I didn't want to live. I was grateful that I got into UCI and that I could dorm there, make friends, and it was a good experience too, just to be independent of my family.
Mm.
But I think I had never learned to stand up on my own two legs. It was more
Mm.
so my parents telling me, oh, you need to do this. This is what you need to do to move forward in
Right.
life.
Mm.
And so I think that dependence or that reliance on someone telling me, and then now not knowing how to move forward, it kind of led me into a more depressive state. In addition to not having anyone that I know, I have to make new friends.
Right.
I have to adjust to a campus by myself. And at the same time, like, I think the resilience piece, or like being able to deal with that, was, I think, in maybe a core value for me, as being curious about things. So even though it was really depressing to just be by myself and kind of make new friends and then go to classes by myself, eat with my roommates, and then they have their own friends too who also came to the same school, whereas I didn't.
Right.
So I think the piece was just like, okay, try to enjoy what I can, be curious about what's around you. And I think when I did get into philosophy, it was very interesting. Not the most interesting. Like, sometimes I would read books that were assigned, like Aristotle. Like, I don't know what he was thinking. Like, I can't understand the concept. What is he trying to say? But still, I was curious to learn, and I think that was a part of where I just needed to continue on.
Right.
I remember the time too where I did a lot of journaling at the time, and I would draw a lot. So it allowed for a creative space for me, and to reflect on my thoughts. Now, like, I look at my journal, like, dang, like, going back to my emo year. Like, I remember in high school too, I was like that emo kid.
Man, you again bringing up emo, or we're aging ourselves a little bit.
I know. I was just thinking, like, oh, maybe we gotta cut that out.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, definitely, it was kind of an emotional time. But once I was like, okay, what do I need to do to move forward? How do I get back in? How do I continue? Because this is not me right now, defined by getting kicked out. I need to go back. I need to go into something that I'm interested in. And I need to graduate, because my parents are going to be pissed if I don't graduate. The fear kind of encouraged me, as well as the curiosity of going into that direction of philosophy.
Right. Thank you for sharing. I think it's so amazing that I feel like when we were in college years ago, I'm like, oh, I feel like so much older, mature because I'm in college. But looking at hindsight now, like, we were still very young in those years. But for you to be able to kind of make that shift in your mindset of like, hey, I can stay kind of in this maybe somewhat of a depressive state, or I can maybe get curious and kind of move forward and maybe see what is life like, pursuing something different, whatever it might be. I think it's just so amazing to hear that you're able to do that in such a young age. I know that's very difficult. It's very challenging to make that shift. But to hear that you're able to do that again at that age, I know there was some fear that may have encouraged that. I think that's amazing. And I think it does show resilience that, hey, I didn't stay in that place, but I was able to move forward. So
I think just one more addition to that, in my second, third, and fourth year at college, I had met some good roommates. And so I mean, there's still my really good closest friends too. So I think that helped me to get back on track. Like, oh shoot, what am I doing? Like, I need to get back on track. And they were studious students who attended all their classes. So I need to be like that and kind of go down that path as well. So I really attribute the support that they gave me and the friendship that I have with them to get to a better space as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me, and it seems like to me, Rebecca, that even with knowing some of your team members at Well Necessity, I feel like every stage of your life, you've had these great friends, great connections, and team members. That's been a huge encouragement, maybe even a strength to you as you are going through different stages of life. So I think it's so common to, in our episodes for this podcast, the common theme has been finding or meeting great people to kind of support and to help you along the way.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
We got to talk a little bit about your, experiences as a youth, as well as going into your college years. There's a term that I feel like a lot of people are familiar with, and the term is adulting. And I feel like adulting is, at least for me, is associated with more challenges, more difficulties. So transitioning into maybe adulthood in terms of maybe your young professional career, early stages, and even coming to this point as a program manager, do you mind sharing with us a little bit about, what were some of the challenges, the difficulties that you've experienced in your early career, your early professional adult life?
Yeah. So after I graduated, that was when it was the Great Recession, 2008. Oh, no. But that had happened, and a lot of people were looking for work, and I also was in the same boat. I need to work, and eventually, after like many months of just applying and going to interviews, I finally found work at Forever 21, working in HR. And so I worked there for maybe like a year and a half roughly, but it wasn't quite satisfying in the work that I did, because you just my department, I was looking at applicants and making sure that they have all of their paperwork if they're going to be an employee at a store. So I remember sometimes also I'm like so sleepy, so I'm like in front of the computer, and then my eyes just close. Oh shoot, I took a nap right there. Dang. So as you can see, it was very unsatisfying in the work that I did. And I think another part too was I wanted to learn to be my own person. And so for quite some time, I actually applied to jobs in Japan. So I wanted to be an English teacher, and I thought that sounds fun. Like I can go experience the culture and the food and just be in a different country. And so I had applied, but I didn't hear back. I remember like at some point I'm like, okay, like I'm not hearing back from anyone. So maybe I'll try Korea. And I applied for like one place, and they called, and I did the interview. And then at the end of the interview, they're like, oh, well, we're actually looking for someone who's more like Caucasian. And I was like, why did you make me go through this process? I put my picture on my application. Man. I'm clearly Asian. So I was like, what was the purpose of this? But eventually I did get an opportunity to teach abroad in Japan. And I was really excited, but my parents were very much against it. I made that decision for myself, and I think that was a point in my life where it's like I learned, if I want something, I have to go for it. There's going to be opposition, and I have to be okay with it. Wow. So my dad was very upset. He didn't talk to me. My mom was upset, but she's like, what could she do? I already had bought my plane ticket. I already packed everything. I just wanted to be in my dad's good grace to be able to go. And like maybe close to the time that I was going to go, he was like, okay. I was like, okay, what a relief. And then I went, bye. And when I went to Japan, I think there were quite a lot of wonderful experiences that I grew into the person that I am today. Because as I mentioned before, like throughout my school years, I was pretty introverted. I shared about feeling, very depressed and, having good friends around me. But at the same time, I think I didn't know how to rely on myself. and be confident in who I am, or, you know, learn some of the life lessons that I need to learn. And so when I reflect on my time, and I spent 4 years in Japan, I really appreciate just meeting the people that I did, learning the lessons that I did. For example, I remember wanting to travel, but no one around me is available to travel. So I didn't want that to limit my ability to travel. And so I'm like, why don't I just try by myself? I'll just book a flight. I'll have like a little vacation on my own in Japan, in a different location. I think it was like Fukuoka. And so I went there, and I'm like, wow, this is great. Like, I am kind of exploring place by myself. I speak a little bit of Japanese. And as the day started to pass and it's getting dark, I'm like, okay, I need to get back to my hostel. And it was in a neighborhood. But I also didn't have a smartphone with me. I didn't have any type of way of accessing Google or any map. So I'm like, how do I go back? Where am I? And so I was really trying, like, wandering the neighborhood. Like, where am I? And at some point I felt really desperate, like, oh my gosh, if I don't make it, I'll have to sleep out here on the streets. Mentally preparing for that too. Like, okay, I guess that Japan's pretty safe, so I think I'll be okay, like, on the streets. And then at the same time, there was like one lady. I think she was living in the neighborhood, and I was desperate. And I think in that moment too, I was like, I don't speak Japanese perfectly. I don't really know how to ask. I don't even know the name of the hostel. But I approached her and said, "Sumimasen, and then, osteru." So I was trying to ask her, and thankfully she knew from just those few words, hostel and excuse me, and she led me to that place where it was my hostel. And so I think that was so pivotal for me in learning. If I never ask, if I never try, the answer will always be no. The door will always be closed. And then I would literally have to sleep on the floor, on the streets. Like, I was mentally prepared for that. But if I hadn't asked, you know, who knows, would I even be here? I'm just kidding.
Oh man.
I'd be roaming the streets homeless. Like, please, where's the hostel? But that was a really big moment for me, and I felt so encouraged and empowered that, hey, I stepped outside my comfort zone. I would not have asked. I would have just kept, like, trying to rely on myself. Where is this hostel? Just like wear myself out, just trying to find it. And she led me to the place, and I think that was what really clicked. Okay, I can't speak perfectly, but I have to try. I have to try. And so that's like one of the bigger lessons that I learned in my time in Japan. And I think having that curiosity that I mentioned earlier as well, cultivating that, because I was curious about other people. I was curious about the culture, the food, exploring and traveling. And so I think I also continued to travel to different places and build my language abilities to at least communicate, like, what is this or what is that? And then they would try to explain it to me. So then trying to learn more. And so I think, like, there were a lot of key moments in Japan that I learned to just go for it. And I think that's why I also tend to say yes to a lot of things, because I don't know what that experience is going to look like, but I'd rather try and then be able to say, hey, at least I tried, and not regret it. So that's also like a key thing for me too, is I'd rather have at least tried than to have not tried at all. And then I regret, like, oh, what could have happened with that opportunity? What could have What could have been different.
Right.
So a lot of great things in Japan, and at some point I wanted to come back to the US. So I didn't want to come back without a plan of like what course of action I want to take. I wanted to go to graduate school, and so I researched like, what do I want to do? I reflected on my life, and I'm like, I think I like to help people. I like to, support them and be helpful. And again, I think tying to my family, being a Christian family, and that being instilled, like help and serve others, right? So that was something that I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, let me think, do I want to go into like social work? Do I want to be a school counselor? And so I kind of researched into both, and I thought, you know what, I think there's a lot of need for social work. So let me pursue that. And I'm going to go back to the US and I'm going to apply. And I hope I get in as soon as I come to the US, so that, it's kind of a seamless transition into the next chapter of my life. And that's where then, when I applied the first time, I didn't get in. And that was very disappointing, because at that point I had come back home, and my dad was really hopeful for me to get into a graduate program and continue my career into whatever profession that I choose. And I remember the day that I told him that I didn't get in, he just became very quiet, and he just said like his blood pressure was rising, and it felt like I had caused it. So I felt very guilty about that, but at the same time too, it was so saddening to me, his reaction, because it's not like I intentionally didn't try to get in. And I remember for like a week or two, he just didn't talk to me. And at some point, I think he was kind of processing it, and he called me in to have a talk. And I remember trying to explain to him, like, this is what I want to do. I'm not trying to like fool around and not go down any type of career path. This is a profession that I want to pursue. And I remember just breaking down and trying to explain to him, like, it's not like I want this just as much as you do too. Like, it hurts me that you feel that way, because I feel it too. Oops. I feel a lot of disappointment in myself. I feel a lot of frustration. And I think in that very vulnerable conversation, just like crying and sharing with him what I was feeling, I think he really started to understand, okay, she is serious. That's what she wants to do. And so, I kind of had to map out what I'm going to do with trying to build more experience in order to submit my next application. And so I worked at a residential house, like a graveyard shift. Residential houses for foster kids who are taken out of their home, whether it's temporarily or permanently, because they don't have any relatives who can kind of take care of them. So I worked there. I also worked as an English teacher here for Japanese students, as well as working at a Boys and Girls Club at high school level. So I was really trying to build my experience and my skills of working with different groups of individuals. And thankfully, I was able to get in the second time around, and I got into USC. And that's where I think a lot of the things that I didn't know kind of helped shape who I am even more in terms of my profession. Because back then with social work, I was like, oh, I think it's more, the stereotype of people just wanting to take kids out of the home. Not that that was my intent. I don't want to take kids out of the home unless there's a safety concern, right? Because there's also those situations where children are not safe in their own home. But the point was more so I wanted to reunite families, help them to learn how to be healthy and how to support their child, how to, kind of be a stronger unit together. So that was like what I initially went in for social work, but there was so much that I learned from USC. And I'm very glad that I also was able to do schooling prior to COVID. So I think one of the important things that I do want to note is that I went to graduate school when I was 30. And I felt very old compared to everyone else because some of them straight out of undergrad, they knew what they wanted to do. I was like, dang. But on the flip side too, I can see, maybe they don't have as much actual experience. They have a good intent, but they don't have the experience of working with different groups of people. But basically, that was like a really informative and formative time for me in terms of my career path. And I learned more about mental health, mental illnesses. I think that created a lot more curiosity for me too. And that's really, again, one of my stronger features of being curious, because I wanted to learn anything and everything about social work. So you can go into policies, you can go into legislation, because you have experience working with different people, you understand. You could go down the therapy route, you can go into a nonprofit or for-profit sector, you can work in a corporate office, providing some type of counseling to other corporate employees. So there were so many different avenues of employment and just learning as well. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I really took in as much as I could in my 2 years at USC.
Even going back to Japan, you're talking about how you were lost. You're like, how do I even get back to my hostel? I feel like when you shared about curiosity, and you shared about, man, I don't even know how to speak the language like fluently or well, but I'm going to use whatever I can to maybe to get the help I need. And something just ringed in my mind. I was like, that's such a huge lesson, and I think that's so relevant for anybody because even, we work in the mental health field. Like there is like, hey, like I need help, but to ask for help sometimes it becomes a barrier, right? Yeah. It becomes very difficult, becomes kind of hard to reach out. Maybe because we're fearful of the unknown, like we don't know what it's going to be like, there's stigma and all those things. But you mentioned something about like, hey, if I don't reach out, I might regret, you know? So it might be better for me, even with the little knowledge I have, to ask for support, to ask for help. And I feel like anyone who's even listening to this, I just want to highlight that, like, man, if they're also maybe having the same struggle, like, hey, it's hard for me to reach out, it's hard for me to ask for help and support, like, it doesn't hurt to have that curiosity and be like, what is this about? Even reaching out and asking questions. Yeah. Even with the very little that you might know, that might be right, or maybe not the full picture, but to get that support, I think it's huge. And I feel like that's kind of a common theme maybe in your life, that curiosity, like seeking for support, reaching out when needed. And I think it's so cool to just kind of see like a flip where it's like, hey, I reached out for help because I need it or I'm curious, but also now kind of in this helping profession. Yeah. So I think that's really cool to see. I just want to highlight that.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And even now too, in my position, I am still curious about a lot of things, how things function. So I will ask questions to upper management. I will, question certain things if I don't understand it. I want to understand it. So I think it's to an advantage to be curious.
That's good. You kind of mentioned in your current role, in your current role as program manager. I can only imagine, again, in your role, there's probably a lot of challenges. There's probably a lot of difficulties that people may think of or may be aware of. I kind of want to touch on what are some challenges and difficulties that people who are not in your role may not be aware of. Like, some things that maybe not be on the surface level, but some things that's happening in the background. And again, like somebody like myself who's not in that leadership role, what are some things that you've encountered, some things that you're even facing right now, that others may not be aware of?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I didn't really want to be program manager, so it's not like an aspiration that I've had. But I went for it because it was more a necessity. Because I was like, I came in as a clinician, right after the MSW program. I was like, I want to get my clinical hours. I want to be a therapist. I want to help people. And then as I joined here, I was like, oh man, is this program going to even survive? Like, I questioned this program a lot. So then when the position over, I was like, I need to stabilize this program in order for my future to be sustained and that I can get my hours. So that was kind of like the real reason of going into being a program manager. But going to your question about what are some of the hidden challenges, I think, and maybe this will be a common answer for others too, is funding. Like having to balance out the funds or looking for funds. Unfortunately, being in a nonprofit sector, working off of grants or working with different foundations, there's a time limit. And so it's not like an indefinite employment sometimes. And it's constantly like, what is the next grant that could sustain the different teams here, as well as for yourself too. And so I think that's one of the challenges in the past, as well as current, very current, with all of the changes at the federal, state, county level. So that is one of the challenges being in this position. And you want to build your team to do the work and do it well, provide high quality service, because that's what community members deserve. And at the same time, like, to retain everyone too, right? So I think in addition to funding, it's also the training. Sometimes as a program manager, you have to do the programmatic, the administrative, and then you also have to lead your team. But you want your team, and for me, one thing that's important for the team is that they feel confident and competent to do the work that they do. Unfortunately, another challenge with the nonprofit sector is no one's there to train you. Like, oh, you'll figure it out. And that literally was how I just had to figure out, like, how do I use this electronic health record system? Hey, and I would ask my colleague, like, oh, how do I type a note? Like, what is the note that I need to use for what situation? And then just like trying to remember how to do those things and learn along the way, because no one's there to give you guidance, really. So that's also, one of the other challenges too. And I think when I became program manager, that was something very important to me. I did not want team members to be in that same situation that I was in. And my situation is different because, again, I'm like super curious. So I was like, where does our funding come from? Let me look it up. And back then it was Proposition 63. So it's like, oh, okay, MHSA funding, Mental Health Services Act. Okay, it's divided into 5 sectors. So I learned a lot because I was curious about it, and I took initiative to find out about it. But not everyone's going to have that curiosity, and they need that information, especially for someone who is in a leadership position, to provide that education. So it was very important just to have team members know where funding comes from, and then how that trickles down to the work that we do, and then how to do the work itself, so that they are comfortable going out into the community. It's not like, okay, you'll figure it out yourself, because that's also social work too. Like with your internship, like, how do I facilitate this? They're like, you'll figure it out. We'll give you the tools. Okay, cool. Which tool goes where? So, those are oftentimes some of the challenges. But you'll figure it out as well.
Right. On the flip side of some of the challenges, kind of in your role, you talked about funding, maybe pivoting even as a program. Um, what are some things as you look back that you are proud about? What are some accomplishments, and what continues to fuel your passion to serve the community, to help the community? Yeah, I just would love to hear, because we heard about some of the rejections, we heard about some of the challenges, right? We heard about, oh man, some of the things that you've gone through, experiences that were difficult. But what are some things that's rewarding for you as you've been, in this space? And
yeah, I think with the rejections, and a lot of times the feeling that ties to it with disappointment and frustration and sadness, I think you learn along the way that that's not defining who you are, and it is getting back up on your feet. The sting of rejection will never feel good at any point,
right.
but you start to develop the mentality of like, okay, well, what's next? Like, that was really unfortunate. That sucks. That didn't go the way that I planned. I worked hard and I still didn't get the result that I wanted. But you continue on. To answer your second question, what's rewarding? As a clinician, when I started, it was being able to see individuals progress, to actually utilize some of the skills or the realizations that they come through in therapy.
Right.
And when you're sharing those moments, like I remember vividly one mom that she was like, and she was really proactive too in her life. So she was focusing on managing her anger, because she grew up with having to be a parent so early on in life, a lot of responsibilities on her. So she's like having to cook, clean, and help support the family. But she herself was a child. So now with her children, she kind of has that same kind of expectation of like, oh, you need to do it quickly when I tell you to do it. And then she would get upset. But her kids are just kids. And she was coming to that realization, and practicing deep breathing exercises, and she would do it together with her kids too. So it was so touching, because every time she'd be like, when I get angry, sometimes my kids come to me and they're like, okay, just breathe.
Wow.
Right. And then they would model that for her, and it's like a good reminder for her. So I felt so proud of her being proactive and making those changes, and then you see that being reflected in her children too. So it's not
so cool.
A continuation of the cycle for her, where it was like, I have to be doing all of these responsible things as a child, and she's kind of like allowing her children to be children, and she's allowing herself to be a child too, because she's like, I don't know how to play with my kids, like when they want to play dolls, like I don't know what that looks like. So like those stories are very rewarding for me as a clinician, and as a program manager, I would say, like, I'm very proud of the team and all that they accomplish and the impact that they have in the community, because they work so hard, and being able to do so in different languages too. It's amazing how they give that one-on-one support to individuals in the community, and then other team members where their strengths are putting events together. And we've worked with Anaheim Packing District, we've gone to Rodeo 39. Our most recent event was at the Source Mall.
That's right.
So it's like, how did we even get to do that? Because that is not my strength. I don't know how to plan events well. I didn't even really enjoy planning my own wedding. So I don't know, and I'm just amazed at their resilience and their creativity to put things together, as well as their compassion for others in the community. So that is I think the rewarding part of being a program manager, when you see your team members succeeding and doing well in the areas that they're interested in, and it makes a ripple effect. I mean, the hope is making a ripple effect in the community.
Right. No, this is great. I love how you're sharing the things about your team, as well as what's fueling you personally, especially when you were a clinician. I think it's so sweet to hear stories like that. That even like moms or parents being able to share that with their young kids, and the young kids are able to utilize that not only for themselves, but be a reminder to, their guardians, their caretakers, their parents of, hey, these are the things you taught us, and we're just sharing with you. Like, hey, let's do deep breathing together. And I can just imagine that. I'm like, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
And that's definitely an impact that all these programs are making in the lives of people, and that's so cool. So I want to thank you for sharing that story, and I appreciate you sharing that and about your team as well. And because this whole podcast is about resilience, maybe we can end with this today.
Sure.
And which is what helps you to be resilient? What keeps you resilient? And those that are tuning in, they might be facing a challenge, a difficulty, an adversity in life. What's something that you would like for them to take away from this episode? From the lessons you've learned, and how you've been able to stay resilient through your journey.
Yeah. There's a few mantras or phrases that I kind of stick to. And, it's not going to be applicable to everyone, because everyone kind of has their own motto that they live by. But for me, in terms of those moments where I was disappointed, I faced feelings of failure and rejection, I think it was more like, let that emotion, like you feel it, of course, and it's a very sucky feeling. But at the same time, like, you can use that emotion to help you to move forward. So for me, one thing that I came to a conclusion is like, let the rage fuel your life. And you convert that feeling of anger, disappointment, frustration, sadness, maybe even hatred towards yourself, to something more positive, because it gives you some type of energy, and you can convert it into something more positive. Like, okay, well, what's next? What can I do to move on from this situation? Because it does suck to kind of dwell for a long duration of time in that setting. And some people will take some time, that's okay, but you don't want to stay too long in that setting, and you want to be able to progress. So that's like one thing that I stick by is let the rage fuel your life. So when I'm working, I hate this work. Let me just get this out of the way. And then it just makes me so mad. I just try to get it done right then and there. So I mean, that's an example for me, how I use the anger and the rage to fuel my life, to get it done. So that's one thing. And I think the other thing that I was kind of expressing is having a curiosity for things, because you hear so many people's stories who they find happiness or success or achievement later on in life. I think a lot of young people, there's this feeling you have to figure everything out, like like I there's someone in my neighborhood who posted letters on everyone's door. They're 11 years old, and they are willing to clean out the trash cans for people. They'll charge a minimal fee, and that money will go to their college funds. It's like, dang, this kid's already like figuring out like what his life's already gonna go into at age 11. And so you meet a lot of young people who they feel like they have to figure it out, but I think there's so much to life that you can learn. And like why I kind of dated myself in terms of I was 30 when I was in the MSW program is because it isn't too late. Even in that program, there were so many people who were in different careers. They either were wanting to add on to their career experience, or they're pivoting. And one of our volunteers too, as a pharmacist, she wanted to go to becoming an MSW, LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. So even for her, she's like pivoting her career path. And you know, you would think she's a pharmacist. You know, she's probably making good money, and you know, there's always going to be these changes. And so I think the other part to this is you just go with life and you'll figure it out, and it'll all work out. It'll be okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca, for allowing us to take a sneak peek. I know it's not everything, but just to hear a little bit of your experiences. I know we didn't focus everything on rejection, and that's not what we wanted to do, but to glean and to kind of unpack some of the things and kind of hear how you navigated through not only rejection, but like some of the challenges and difficulties in different stages of your life. And I really hope for those of you that were tuning in that Rebecca's story was inspirational and encouraging. And I hope that it provides hope to, again, anyone who's listening in. Maybe you can relate with Rebecca. Maybe you can relate with some of the different stages of her life and some of the challenges that she experienced. And we really hope that this, again, has provided you some encouragement. Thank you, Rebecca, for your time. Thank you for sharing your story with us today. I love these talks. I love how we can kind of tap into and glean from other people's stories, because it's unique, right? So thank you for that. And again, you can find us on YouTube, on our Okapica channel, as well as on Spotify. It's going to be Okapica Stories of Resilience. Hope you tune into the episode, and thank you once again. And we really hope that you can stay tuned for the next episodes to come. Thank you, and hope you have a good one.